All right, come on in, everybody. Welcome to a late holler hour here on Tuesday. I'm Justin. This is Cassie. We are the Holler. tnholler.com is where you can find us at the TN Holler on Twitter and Facebook. And you can also support all of these hollers made possible by you and your monthly donations. They really, really help. Make it $10 a month or more, and you can get one of these sweet holler hats. And then before we get into what we're going to talk about today, I just want to remind everybody that on May 15th at 2 p.m. Central Time, we are going to have a Holler Fest right here on Facebook or Twitter, wherever you're watching it, with all of these great voices. We're going to have progressive groups and people and elected officials talking about the issues that are facing Tennessee, giving little mini TED Talks. It'll be a lot of fun. We also have a surprise that we'll go ahead and announce it here because I think it's going to happen. We haven't
Hell yeah.
officially announced it yet, but Stella Parton, I think, is going to join us and play a little song for us, which is very cool. As always, comment along. We can see you. And if you've got anything you want to holler about, message us for the link and you can jump in today. There's a lot to holler about. The session is coming to a close, thank goodness, because there's no sentence more threatening than the Tennessee legislature is in session. Cassie, how you doing today?
Doing pretty well. Just enjoying the nice weather, and yeah, I'm honestly really glad for the session to be ending. I mean, it's always an interesting time.
Always
But yeah,
interesting.
it's much better for the state that it's ending, as you said. So I'm grateful for that. After this week, it's this is the last week, right? They're not going to bleed into next week at all.
No, I think they are going to bleed into next week. I'm hearing
Oh,
now.
okay.
So there will be more magic from the legislature next week.
Great.
This week, their focus, as we flashed, is cutting unemployment benefits, which is exactly what this state needs right now. They are trying to slash the amount of weeks that people are able to collect unemployment benefit from something like 26 to 12, which, is harmful to people. It's harmful to the economy. And it's based on this notion that they have that people are just living high on the hog in Tennessee when they're unemployed. Those jobless people just have it too good. And that's why they're not going back to work. And it really has nothing to do with the fact that some of these jobs just aren't paying enough. And also, one very glaring fact that they never want to talk about, which is that if you earn too much money in Tennessee, you will price yourself out of health insurance and not
Right.
qualify for Medicaid anymore. So, because they haven't expanded Medicaid, the line at which you will price yourself out of insurance is lower. So if you take some of these jobs, you will end up losing your health insurance, which makes the equation not work. And at the same time, they won't raise the minimum wage in Tennessee. We have the highest percentage of minimum wage jobs in the country. So
Hmm.
instead of raising the wage, instead of expanding Medicaid, they prefer to cut unemployment benefits, to kick people off of unemployment benefits and force them back into the workplace. That is not helpful. That is not putting people first. That is a harmful way of going about this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it just reminded me of this little graphic that we posted yesterday and tagged our favorite Representative Jeremy Faison.
Yes.
And $10 an hour. I mean, that's even more. I mean, we're still at the federal minimum wage here in Tennessee. I mean, that just kind of like exemplifies, the whole issue. And of course, expanding Medicaid, which I'm sure will play this, but you asked the governor today about
Yes.
whether that would help. And
Yeah.
he received no answer.
I don't have that
So,
clip. I have a different clip, but
oh,
yes,
okay.
we'll play the clip that I have. But, you know, a separate clip, Kyle Horan of Channel 5 asked if he supports the unemployment benefit cuts. And Governor Lee essentially said, yes, he does. And then he didn't call on me. But as he was leaving, I said, what about raising the wage or expanding Medicaid? Would those help the equation? And he didn't answer that. But he did answer one of my questions, to his credit. I was there this morning, and I was in the Supreme Court chamber, the old Supreme Court chamber, and he comes in and he gives his speech about why, we've conquered the pandemic, which I think was
Oh,
news
it's
to a lot
totally
of
over,
people.
right?
Yeah, apparently it's over. We need to get back
Apparently
to
it's over.
parades and celebrations. And then he answered a couple of questions, and then he turned to me and said, "What's your question?" I didn't even have my hand up at the time, but I knew what I wanted to ask. So I asked, and this is what I asked. In Memphis, you said that you support the bill to require teachers to warn parents if LGBT community was mentioned. Would you support something like that that
What I see is that parents should have the last word about what their children learn in our public schools. Parents should decide, not the government, what their individual children should learn. And it's a parental choice educational bill, and that's the reason I'm supporting it.
So the bottom line there is he's essentially saying yes, that
Yeah.
he does support parents being able to choose not to hear about Black people or Jews. You know, very clearly, this is a bill targeted at LGBT people. It says that it forces teachers to warn parents 30 days in advance if they plan to talk about or address is the word it uses LGBT people. And
Yeah.
so I asked him, would you support something like that about Black people or Jews? And, you know, he's hiding behind this parental choice thing, which is such a cop out because it's not like parents get to choose everything, you know, in their child's curriculum. The
Right.
state chooses what to teach our kids. And, you know, this is a very discriminatory bill that otherizes LGBT people. And it's a really ugly thing. And, you know, it pairs with all of the other anti-LGBT, anti-trans kids legislation. And, you know, that community of which you are a part is under attack. And I want to know from you, Cassie, how does it feel to be gay in Tennessee right now?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, after this session, it really makes me very sad, and it makes me sad for. I mean, of course, this bill targets the entire LGBTQ population, but I'm especially sad for the trans folks that I know that are in my life because they have been especially targeted by this really hateful legislation that's gone through the session. I mean, we've covered so much of it, between the trans athlete bills, the healthcare, making it more difficult for them to access healthcare, things like that. Bathroom bills, of course. How could we forget those? There are a couple of them. It's really really disgusting, and also I just wanted to raise a point that I heard Representative Gloria Johnson bring up a couple weeks ago about this very bill. This bill that, as you said, otherizes the LGBTQ community, which is it's incredibly powerful. The just otherization in general, like that compounds over time. I mean, I mean, very well from your family with Jewish people and just any other kind of marginalized community. It really has it can have severe ramifications, and it just kind of is one of those things that can build over time. It's really dangerous. But Gloria Johnson, who's a former teacher, and she was talking about how this bill is not only hateful, bigoted, etc., homophobic, but it's also just like a logistical nightmare for teachers because she said that there would be, when she was a teacher, there would be situations that would come up in class where maybe a student had like two moms or two dads or whatever, or maybe they were LGBT themselves, and if there was something where another kid was like making fun of them, like for having two moms or for whatever else, then it's like, what are they going to do? Then like pause because what she would do is like then kind of have a teachable moment in the class and like kind of talk to everyone about how
Right.
that's
Now
not
she's gonna
right
have
and
other
how
kids going and saying, oh, she talked about gay people and nobody warned my
right.
parents. Like,
Are you
what are
going to
we
have to like
talking about
pause that
here?
conversation for 30 days? Be like, okay,
It's
well,
crazy.
just stop your conversation, kids, right now. I'll get back to you in 30 days on why this is wrong. Like,
It's
what?
crazy. It's crazy. Yeah.
It's
And
insane.
you know, teachers in Nashville are urging metro schools to come out with a resolution against this. You know, I think there are going to be teachers who intentionally violate this. Like imagine a
Yeah.
teacher getting what, arrested? Like what's going to
Right. What are they,
happen
what's
here?
going to happen?
What's the punishment? Like I don't even understand. But,
Yeah.
you know, it creates a climate of bigotry and animosity, and it makes people think that this kind of targeted harassment is okay. And so I lay the next thing that we're going to talk about right at the feet of bills like this of Governor Lee, who has a gay sister, by the way, which I know
Right.
people sometimes don't like that I mention that, but I think it's important to
It's
mention,
true. Like,
and
it's
it's
just
just
the
the truth.
fact.
But we saw in Nashville, actually, it was in Franklin. I thought it was in Nashville. No, it's in Franklin. These Franklin High
Yeah.
kids
Yeah.
were at prom, and Sam Johnson, who was somebody that I actually was aware of because he was a follower of ours and he had hopped in our mentions to talk about some of this stuff in the past. And I
A
haven't really
famous
got,
homophobe.
yeah, I mean, I don't really remember exactly what our conversations were, but I was aware of this
Mm.
guy. And this was him at a prom at Harpeth Hotel, and he was essentially drunk apparently and following these Franklin High kids around. One was wearing a dress at his prom and harassing him.
I chose what I want to wear, so you can fuck off. Okay?
Is that
Okay.
right? Is that right?
Think he looks gross?
That's my boyfriend.
Looks disgusting? Yeah?
Yeah. You look like
I look like what?
What
Fuck
is it-
off!
what
you
does he
fucking
look
bitch.
like? You look like an idiot.
Get the fuck away from me!
What does he look like?
Please stop.
Oh, do not let
No,
me-
sir. No, sir. I can fucking record you all I
Get the
want.
fuck away!
Keep talking.
Please, please.
Say
Look like a
something.
moron.
Get away!
Please.
Stop, 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 please.
It's just prom.
This is a special night.
It's kids. It's a bunch of kids. Come on, dude.
Just don't let one thing bother, just please. Just stop.
I'm sorry, I'm gorgeous.
Stop.
Are you?
Yes.
Yep. Just sort of.
Stop.
I'm just going to stop it on his grinning face there, because now we know what came next. This video went pretty viral. It was on TikTok first, and then one of the kids who posted it did a little rundown on TikTok also of what had happened. He was following him around. The parents started to get involved. I think the police came, and he went back into the bar. And then the next day it was discovered that he works for a company called Visuwell, and it's a telehealth company. Newsweek picked up the story. Kathy Griffin tweeted about it. A few other big influencers on Twitter, Rex Chapman, people that we know, picked it up. And, Heavy did a whole thing on it and who he was and his background. We've since heard that he's a member at Grace Chapel Church, which is Governor Lee's church, and he lives in Franklin. And he came out with a statement saying, he was just upset about the vulgarity that the kids were using. And he wasn't actually being homophobic, which was, poked. The video itself, you can see obviously what was going on there. That's a blatant lie. And then what ended up happening next, which, to their credit, Visuwell came out yesterday and said they have terminated his position as CEO. He was CEO of Visuwell, and they said they terminated his position as CEO. And the question was, okay, well, does that mean that he's terminated entirely or just as CEO? And they clarified today and said, no, in response for those asking for clarity, Sam Johnson's termination, we can confirm he's no longer employed by Visuwell in any capacity or has a position on the board or any informal advisory role. His behavior was not representative of our values, which include respect and compassion for all. So shout out to Visuwell for doing this, and I'm sure there will be a lot of people saying cancel culture and, wokeness and all that. But I mean, this dude is harassing high school kids at their prom. We have heard other things that he's been up to in the past. This is clearly a guy that has some issues, and Visuwell, they're a business to business solution for telehealth. They were probably getting flack from other businesses that they deal with. This was going to become a problem for them. And, what some people perceive as cancel culture, others like myself, and I'm sure you too, perceive as accountability culture.
Exactly.
This is accountability, and this is a way for a community to protect itself just simply through awareness. And Visuwell had a choice to make. Nobody forced them to make it. They're a private company, and they made a private decision. And this is how capitalism works.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really grateful that they made the right decision on this, because a lot of companies haven't in the past. They just kind of shuffle things around and, they put out a vague statement and then the pressure goes away. So I'm glad that, one, that the Holler followed up on it and asked, no, exactly what does this language mean? Like where is this person now? Has he left the company? And sure enough, that is the case. So I'm really grateful for that. And it's just like, what the fuck with this guy? I'm sorry. Like the audacity of going after high school kids, following them around. And I mean, obviously he's a bigot, but it's just like, it's so small and gross. And
it's really small. That's very well said. It's definitely small and gross. And, again, I just go back to, this is enabled by bills in the legislature, the rhetoric, the attacks on trans kids, like
otherization.
It's the same thing as, we have a KKK Grand Wizard bust in our capital. We can't be surprised that we have more than our share of white supremacist events in Tennessee. Like, the fish stinks from the head. This is about leadership. People in this state in positions of power are saying, oh, it's okay to otherize gay kids, LGBT kids, trans kids, and this guy picks up on that and he feels empowered. He's standing in the county from which Bill Lee hails, Marsha
As you said,
Blackburn
same
hails,
church, like,
same church, Cassida, like all these people that are voting for this legislation, putting forth this legislation. So he feels like, oh yeah, I run this. This is where
right.
my way of thinking uh, is what carries the day here. And there he is harassing kids at their prom. I mean, it's a really dark thing to be doing. And, again, I feel like there are a lot of people to blame here.
Yeah, I think that's really good to put the onus on, the fish stinks as at the head, as you said, that's because I mean this stuff really does just like seep down into the culture, and I mean that's why we have like I don't know if we're at the very top, but we're close to the top in terms of like white supremacist like events that happen in the state in like the country. Like Tennessee ranks like towards the top in terms
Yeah,
of like
we're
the
right
number
up
of those
there. We're right
things.
up there. 20%, I think it was in 2018 of the white supremacist events in the whole country happened right here in Tennessee.
20%.
Yep.
That's a huge number
It's a really big
compared to
number.
50 other states. That's
Yep.
insane.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, exactly. I mean, this stuff is like, and going back to like another, it's and it's not an LGBTQ thing, but like another bill that's relevant to this whole just kind of like propping up the way that things are essentially is the run over the protester bill
Yeah.
that like decriminalizing running over protesters.
Yep.
And all of this stuff is like they're just emboldening the people that like kind of already have these white supremacist views or hateful views, and making it okay for them to continue to have them and to continue to marginalize people who are not part of that status quo.
I do think, though, we should mention it's important to celebrate the victories, and that run over a protester bill, which has passed in other states, died here for the year.
Right. That's
Because
true.
I
That's
think
true.
because there was pushback, we hollered about it. CNN picked it
Mhm.
up. It was Jack Johnson, Williamson County Senator, my senator, yours too.
Right.
He was carrying the bill in the Senate, but he didn't do anything with it, even though Ron Gant did in the House.
Mhm.
So I think it's important to celebrate the victories, and shaming them for that run over a protester bill did work. There were some other bills that
That is very
died.
true. Yep.
The LGBT book ban died. So there are
Mhm.
some things that sort of die that nobody really hears about, but it's
Mhm.
important to know that you guys emailing and hollering about this stuff does kill bills that you just kind of don't hear about. They just sort of go away, and it's
Mhm.
important to celebrate the victories.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Agree with that. And just kind of on, I don't know if this was something that you had wanted to talk about, but the the whole like concentration of power, like in terms of like just something that's kind of flown under the radar is like how
Yeah.
there are a lot of bills and we've posted about some of them, but like there are a lot of bills that are like trying to make it more structurally difficult for basically non-Republicans to have power in the state,
Mhm.
and just trying to really hone in, even though they have a supermajority already. So like when they do redistricting, they're going to have no problem having whatever they want, essentially.
Yes.
They're trying to make it so like there are a number of bills. Like Curcio had one. There was one that Farmer
So the
had.
bills are, there were sort of
Yeah.
three elements to it. One is a Curcio bill that creates a chancery court, which would be
Hmm.
3 judges handpicked by Governor Lee that would preside over constitutional challenges to their laws. So, and at the same time, the laws that are challenged would take hold until the final appeal. So, for instance, vouchers, which was challenged in court and defeated,
Hmm.
would still be the law right now because it's being appealed. So they would change it so that instead of getting a stay on a law until the final appeal, it would go into effect until the final appeal. So we'd have like a year or two of vouchers, even
Right.
though it had been found unconstitutional under this law, which they are pushing. And then the other part of it, which I think died in the Senate, was they wanted to make it illegal for the cities like Memphis and Nashville to
Yeah.
sue the state with
Hmm.
state money. So, and
With
then they
Kelsey
create
pushing that, right?
with Kelsey pushing that, and then they also are creating a new court where with 3
The
handpicked
Chancery
judges.
Court.
And Governor Lee was asked about that Chancery Court today,
Hmm.
and the attack on the judiciary, and if he supports it, and he
Yeah.
tried to flip it and say that what they're really doing is giving the judiciary more independence.
No, he's
Yeah, that's what he
appointing them
said.
again for the
Right,
first
more
round.
so judges that he is appointing to preside over challenges to his laws are actually gonna have
Yes.
more independence than they do now, and what he's saying is he's going after activist judges like Chancellor Lyle, who ruled
Exactly.
against,
Exactly.
the challenge to absentee ballots, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, they're
Right.
attacking the judiciary. Like you said, they're trying to make it so that they don't lose anymore. Authoritarianism is taking hold in Tennessee. It should be a huge story. It's
Yeah.
starting to pick up some steam a little bit, but it's something that
But we're in
should
the
concern
last week also of the
we're in the last week,
session,
but this should concern
essentially.
the entire country because, one of the kind of cool things about our system is like something that affects one small city or state is
Mhm.
linked to the countrywide elections, and laws because we're all intertwined. So, if something's going to make Tennessee, gone forever, like that's going to affect countrywide elections also because everything affects everything else. So the attack on the judiciary in Tennessee is something that should concern the entire country.
Yeah.
And hopefully more and more people will start to take notice.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And just a little bit more on that chancery court. Just to kind of reiterate what you were saying, like if Governor Lee put out an executive order, then and if there was a challenge to it, then those judges that he appointed, that he handpicked,
Yep.
will hear that complaint.
Yep.
And for redistricting, which is going to happen next year, because these judges, their term, it's a short term for when they're appointed. After that they'll be elected, but it's in 2022. They're going to be there until 2022, so through redistricting. And so the state legislature, the GOP members of the state legislature, are going to have complete control over redrawing the lines here in Tennessee. And so if there are any redistricting complaints within that frame, then the judges that, again, he handpicked will hear the complaints about those lines that were drawn.
Right. Right. And it's wild to like think about what they're trying to get away with. And they just walk around like, it's no big deal. But it's a big deal. What's going
Yeah,
on?
it's a
And,
huge deal. It's
you know,
structural. This structural stuff, like,
yeah.
is it flies under the radar. It's not like a shiny object. Of course, we need to pay attention to the shiny objects too. They're really important. All of it's really important. But the structural stuff, it's really what keeps this, cements it and makes it more foundational and more difficult to change in the long
Right.
run.
I mean, think about all the different laws that they've been sued over already,
Yeah.
and lost, like voter registration, criminalization, or abortion bills, all of these things would just take hold until the final appeal, which take years,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
their process would just be, let's pass all this unconstitutional legislation because we know it's going to take hold. And then, by the time the final appeal happens, who knows what could happen by then? Who knows if they'll even be in office by then?
Yeah.
So,
And then
it's
they'll
a
find
really
another way. Like, it just gives them more time to, like, it just makes it that much more difficult. So, like, even if they're like, oh well, it won't be there forever, like, it makes it that much easier for it to continue after that, like something that everybody's already used to. Like, that's just how that works.
right. It's really ugly. So everybody needs to stay paying attention to all this stuff. One last thing that I just wanted to show before we ended was this horrific rant by Tucker Carlson, who is just getting worse and worse. And last night, he decided it'd be a good idea to go on a whole rant against masks and essentially saying that kids wearing masks I don't even want to play it. You know what? I don't want to play that. Basically, he said kids
Just
wearing masks
describe what happened.
is child abuse, and
Yeah.
that any kid wearing a mask outside, you should call Child Protective Services on the parents, which, by the way, is illegal to call Child Protective Services on parents for no reason. But the anti-mask thing is just so out of control, and Tucker Carlson and Fox News, they're worse than Newsmax at this point in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think they're just trying. I think that they feel that competition from Newsmax, honestly,
Yeah.
that race to the bottom. They feel the pressure on that, and so they're trying to, like, out crazy them. And Tucker, I mean, the fact, like, he just brings in so much money for that station, and his audience. What does he get, like 3 million viewers a night or something insane like that?
Wow.
His viewership is massive, and so he brings in a shit ton of money for them, even though sometimes like pressure on ad or people running ads, like companies running ads on Fox, that definitely needs to be continued and does sometimes work. Like he's such a moneymaker for them. And it's just really scary because, I mean, who knows if this will happen? I don't want to speak it into existence, but people have already been talking about it, about him being a top contender for the 2024
I know
elections.
he's on those lists. Boy, would that be ugly.
I'm just trying not to think about it, honestly.
I'm trying not to also. Well, we
Yeah.
appreciate you guys hanging with us Tuesdays, Thursdays at 2 p.m. We're going to have some guests coming up. As session ends, we'll probably focus more and more on doing these things and interviews and stuff like that. And then also just want to reiterate, we will be here May 15th, 2 p.m. for Holler Fest. A lot of great people will be joining us. We hope you will too. Make a plan to join us. Spread the word about it. If you want the art or any way we can help you spread the word, we'll send an email to your group, whatever. We want to try to make this a big thing, and we're going to do it yearly, we hope, and maybe in future years and have an in-person event. But Holler Fest, May 15th, 2 p.m. Join us there, and we will talk to you on Thursday. Bye, everybody.
See ya.